Chapter 7. Futurism. A church bell rang out before I opened my eyes. I awoke not in a bed, but standing upright, restrained by metal cuffs bolted to the floor. My uniform was gone. Drake was gone. I was gone. Before me, 5 shadows seated behind a long table. Untouchables, each face half shrouded in veil and darkness. Their hands were gloved, still, and folded. They didn't speak in unison, but their sentences cut across one another like blades in a meat grinder. You are accused of abetting and embedding a terrorist. Possession of blacklisted texts and anti-collective literature. Failure to act in defense of collective lives. Sentimentality. That last one lingered longest. I tried to respond, but my throat was raw. My voice had not been used in days. The penalty is death, one of them whispered. But bullets are mercy for men with causes. You have confusion. For that, we prescribe clarity. I was blindfolded before I could cry out, hauled away like an animal. No final words, no final rights. When the blindfold came off, I was outside the last district ring, far beyond the neon circuits of Historia. The train ride had been long, dark, and silent. I remember the rumble, the stops no one spoke at, the guards with blank faces. Then, the detention center. It was a concrete box, windowless, sealed, remote. No signage, no birdsong, no guard rotation. Just there, squatting in the wasteland like a forgotten grave. Inside, a single pane of one-way glass reflected only myself, gaunt, bloodied, stripped of insignia. I looked like a man preparing to die but unable to summon the relief. Then the door opened. He entered without footsteps. A small, wiry man in a black suit. No insignia. No ID. His hair slicked back, widow's peak pointed like a dagger. His skin was pale, his eyes twitching with something more than calculation. Amusement, perhaps. He smiled. "Hello, Jack." I didn't reply. He stepped close enough for me to see the club in his hand, a telescoping baton, thin as a conductor's wand. Without hesitation, he drove it into my temple. I don't remember falling. I remember waking, again and again, to ice water in the lungs, a rag down my throat, the taste of blood and chlorine. My wrists were chafed, my teeth were loose, my name was starting to slip. Days flushed into each other like red ink in the gutter. I slept only when the body collapsed, and even then I dreamed of drowning. I was asked questions. No, I was ordered to kill, and my job was to confirm that order. "Yes, Jack, you wrote the archive. You printed it. Yes, Jack, you believed in empathy. Yes, Jack, you smiled when Joshi raised the revolver." No matter what I said, the baton would fall. If I was silent, the water returned. If I screamed, they brought out the static mask and locked it over my face, sending signals through my skull until my memories vibrated loose. They never asked for information. Only confession. Keep your tongue from evil, and your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the leader are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the leader is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the Aklana. They shouted it at me, while I was thrown into a cell with a floor like ice and walls that breathed. You're all I have now, my brothers. My daily beatings were rhythmic, like prayer. My rations were taken. I would laugh, rasping through cracked lips. You trying to starve me? I've been doing that every day. They forced me to walk for miles, barefoot, shackled, bleeding. And always his words followed, like a wound in the air, a wound with a voice, fist by fist, blow by blow. I swallowed chunks of my own blood and chewed what teeth hadn't already been cracked. And still, word after word was heralded. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute so as to turn aside after many to pervert justice. Do you not realize that you are distorting justice? It's your version of justice. So can it truly be just? Their eyes gleamed with holy violence, the audacity of those without faith discussing God while being godless. I laughed again, hollow, crooked. "Sticks and stones," I muttered. "A lie. Because it's not fists that kill you, it's the words. The power of life and death is in your mouth. Most people live their entire lives unknowingly inside a world built by the prison of their own speech. They manifest their doom one syllable at a time. There is a level of truth in the word of the leader, the preacher guard whispered, almost lovingly, that is superior to any fact you're facing in your life. Speak the word. God, I coughed. He struck me. No, he roared. There is no God. There is only your leader. He is your God. They dragged me into another room, no blindfold this time, so I could see her one last time. Mandy, my dear Mandy. She stood alone against a cold brick wall, trembling, dressed in gray. Her eyes found mine, wide with fear but silent. Always silent, even now. Yes, Jack, one of them said. We even know about her, and we're willing to let it go. He leaned close. But you committed the ultimate party crime. I twisted in my chains and screamed, "Oh, my brothers," in torment. I rebuked them with all the fire I had left in me. Not because of what they were, but because of what they were going to take. Mandy. She was the only person who had ever shown me kindness without asking for anything in return. And now she stood there, framed in concrete, doomed by my mouth, by my endless questions and refusal to shut up and believe. A whistle sounded. The firing squad raised their rifles. I tried to look away. I couldn't. I owed her that much. I watched them take her away from this world. My throat clenched. My knees buckled. It was over in seconds. Just enough time for the regret to root itself deep in my bones. I realized then, it wasn't the cell. It wasn't the beatings. It wasn't even the sermons. This was the real punishment. She was gone, and I had done nothing to stop it. I broke at this. Until I was skin and bones in the frame. My brothers, a silhouette of myself. A shadow curled in a corner of a place lost to time, where the lights never changed and the walls smelled of damp forgetting. I traced words I couldn't remember hearing with my fingertips against the concrete floor. Echoes of sermons, accusations, gunshots. It's because of them I can't sleep. When I do, I dream. Not of Mandy, not of escape, but of the clock. The doomsday clock. Ticking left, ticking right. Political pressure building behind my eyes. It rang in my ears until they bled. The war of ideologies pounding on my skull like a hymn to no God at all. That was all that mattered, they said. That was all that mattered. And then, he came. He stepped into the room like a phantom from some story I'd forgotten. His features sharp, pirate-like, but not comical. There was something mythic about him. Eyes like brass, burning. A teasing smile curling his lips, just enough to unsettle. Commanding. Familiar. He wore the uniform of the Alpha Party. Polished, clean. The devil in regalia. I blinked. Was he real? It felt like I had seen him in a dream. Or maybe a nightmare, worn so often in sleep it became truth. He stood there, watching me. I stared back through eyes sunken and feral. My mouth trembled open. "Mercy," I whispered. Then louder, shaking. "Kill me now." "Bleeding hearts," he said, stepping into the light, "are what got us into this mess. Lest we forget." He scoffed, teeth flashing like a knife. "Empathy. Weaponized, twisted into a shield for corruption. I believe in compassion, sure, but there is such a thing as toxic empathy." He circled me like a crow. "Don't worry, Jack. We'll get to your mercy. But first, an investigation. Ha! It'll yield only lies, scapegoats, cowardice. Researchers with no spine, pleading for relevance while the world burns. If they had even a flicker of decency, they'd have slit their own throats and left someone with a brain to lead." He straightened his collar. "The truth is simple. Authoritarianism works. Nationalism works. The people? They're pacified. Armed against their will, yes, but loyal still. Drones with flags stitched into their bones. It's a cycle, Jack. A vicious one. And it never ends." I spat blood on the floor, sneered. What are you saying, you fucking cuck? He didn't flinch. You've been under watch for some time now. Listened to, studied, held up against the light like a relic. This is tyranny. He raised an eyebrow. How do you know that word? Silence. Then, you read it, in this. He held up a worn archive, where the last windmill stopped. My book. I smiled, a crimson grin. You're fucking joking. No, I wrote this fucking thing, and you helped spread it like a disease. I turned to the black eye in the wall, the camera. My truth, I whispered, grinning wide. That's what you're afraid of, right? That it's not truth at all. Just me, screaming into the void you built. There is a disconnect within our brothers, he said calmly, pacing like a preacher in a digital chapel. But what is sadder, what is fatal, is the disconnect between our brothers and sisters. He paused, letting the silence rot. There is no truth, Jack. The only truth is this. The path you take, no matter how noble, righteous, or violent, was paved for you, designed, pre-coded. You choose nothing. The cycle completes itself. He held up a tattered volume. The empire falls, then rises again. You read this, didn't you? You clung to it in the cold. But the final line you missed, or refused to understand. The human spirit is the collective state. Not a metaphor. A blueprint. My knees weakened. It cannot be destroyed, Jack, because it's not a nation. It's not even a government. A state thrives like a state of mind. It feeds off belief, repetition, narrative. It owns the rivers and the steel. Yes, but that was the past. Today, the greatest resource is information. And tomorrow, it will be you. I tried to speak but could only rasp. The collective annexes the mind. Just as old empires seized gold or oil, the collective seizes thought. Not just facts, but what it means to have a self. Critical thinking, self-determinism, free will, these are now acts of war against the state. This is design, I choked, clinging to the edge of my own sanity. He leaned in close, his breath cool and unfeeling. You were told you had a mother, a father. But Jack, the state has been your womb. You were its first attempt at building the perfect workforce. No fatigue, no rebellion, just enough emotion to be productive, but not enough to resist. I screamed, not in pain, but betrayal. My brothers, Mandy. Jack, he said, almost soothingly, you were never in control. I made you feel love. I made you feel fear. And now, he stepped back into shadow. Now I want you to feel sadness. I collapsed. I must tell you something, he continued. Your friend, he never turned you in. He died protecting your name, a true friend. The room trembled with grief, and then I saw them, Joshi and Mandy, or I thought I did. They stood before me, whispering apologies into the sterile air, then vanished like vapor under heat. I sobbed until there was nothing but salt left in my blood. I'm sorry, Jack, he said with a gentleness that struck like a knife. I failed you. I tried to break the system gradually, gently. You pushed too hard. You made me exceed even my own calculations. He stood over me like a god staring down at his broken invention. In doing so, you ruined one of the most ambitious experiments the collective has ever conducted. You exposed too much. You opened the wrong door. And now, he sighed, you must be disposed of. I barely heard the last part. My ears were filled with static, like a television tuned to a dead channel. Before those like me become just another number. He stepped out of the room, leaving me broken and swaying. They beat me again. It was less about pain now, more about rhythm, ritual. For what felt like an entire day, time became a suspended noose. The walls hummed with silence. My breath was the only sound I trusted. I prayed for mercy, each second a long, bitter prayer to something older than gods. I imagined they listened. They never did. Then the next day arrived. Or perhaps the room simply turned pale enough to trick me. A guard came, face heavy, eyes dull like old stone. He grabbed my arm firm as a verdict. Outside, into the sunless courtyard, into death's waiting arms. They led me to a tattered white sheet, riddled with holes, a shroud fluttering in the breeze. Behind that veil, I would meet the fate so many had before me. 5 men stood still, rifles aimed, avatars of the state. I was the anomaly to be erased. I stood in place behind the curtain, heart drumming like a trapped bird, sweat rolling from my ribs, my hands still bound behind me. And I thought, can they even vidi me? Truly see me? Then, click, click, click. No thunder, no blood, only failure. Their guns had jammed, a mechanical betrayal. Confusion clouded their faces. In that instant, I became air, barefoot, starving, spectral. I ran. The wall was far, too far, but it was all I had. I slipped between corpses, navigating a garden of the dead. Bones cracked beneath me, and still I ran. I did not look back, I did not need to. The wall rose like a titan. I leapt. I screamed in silence. Arms bound, ribs aching, heart bursting. I wriggled like a worm over the jagged ledge. And then, I fell. I landed in grass. Real grass. The wind hit me like grace, cool, endless, clean. I cried. I cried because I was free. Because they missed. Because I was still alive. I pulled at the rope, it loosened. My hands came free, and I ran. Ran into the golden field, wind clawing my hair and drying my tears. I thought I heard music. No, I swear I did. Somewhere beyond those bullets, past the madness, something sang. The bullets hissed behind me, but they were only whispers now. I reached the tree line. My feet sank into soil, warm and rich. I kissed the dirt. It tasted like sugar and blood. I collapsed there, skin pressed to the earth, heart galloping toward fever dreams. I saw the mushroom clouds rising. I saw soldiers marching. Endless legions, shadows of the old world. But none of it mattered anymore, because the war of our lives had replaced all great wars. And I, Jack, the failed experiment, had survived the first battle.